Well, welcome everybody. I'm John Perry, and I'm here with my colleague Carol Elliott. We are on the Utah Independent Business Coalition Advocacy Committee, and we're here to provide you our what I believe is the fifth and final update of the Utah 2022 legislative session. So we obviously focus on legislation that has impact on our local independent businesses here in Utah. The legislature wrapped up last week on Friday. And so we've had a little time to digest the developments of that kind of fast and furious last 10 days or so of the legislature, and we want to report to you, and then make sure you stay tuned to our broadcast here all the way till the end, because we want to tell you about something that we'll be doing in April to give you some more information that I'm sure you'll want to get on your calendar. So Carol, would you like to start with kind of the wrap up? We've kind of made a summary of all the bills that we tracked and had provided information in previous webcasts and in our written updates. And there's many that passed, and there's some that didn't. But would you like to start with some of the ones that passed, Carol?
Sure. So the first one I want to talk about is HB 35. It's the economic development modifications. And basically this bill moves to the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission the decisions instead of the Business and Economic Subcommittee's decision on identifying targeted industries for tax credits and for assistance from the government as preferred industries. It kind of sounds like a little bit of a power play, that it wants it to move from a subcommittee to a commission. I have a problem with it in the sense that I don't think they should be picking winners and losers and targeting certain industries for tax credits and ignoring other industries.
Well, this has been an issue that I know we've been following for years, right, Carol?
We have been.
Yeah, as far as certain tax and other economic incentives being provided to, like you say, certain industries, and then certainly certain large businesses that have come into the state, and certainly not without some expense or burden on more of our local independent businesses. So I appreciate your insight on that. What's another one that passed? So again, we're going through bills that have passed, and almost all of these are still awaiting the governor's signature to finally approve. So, and I don't know of any that we're talking about today that are not are believed to not be favored by the governor, but I just want to give that little proviso to everybody that you just want to kind of keep your ear to the ground on these to learn that they actually have been signed into law by the governor. But what would be next on your list, Carol?
Well, the next one I'm going to have turn over to you, because I think the next one we should talk about is HB 63.
Okay, yes. So this was one of the bills in this session that pertains to COVID-19. And so this one was the vaccine exemptions bill. So in short, what this bill, again, this one passed. This one makes it, essentially illegal for an employer to make either a hiring or a termination decision regarding employees that's based upon what an employee's vaccination status It essentially makes it illegal to either hire somebody because either they are or aren't vaccinated, or to terminate an employee because they are or are not vaccinated. Um, and it also makes a provision that an employee who has evidence, medical evidence, that they were previously infected and has quote unquote natural immunity, then that would favor the employee as well under this legislation. Importantly, there is a caveat that you can read in this bill, in that it does not prohibit an employer from just verbally asking an employee to voluntarily disclose whether the employee is vaccinated. So as I take it, if you are employing somebody and you want to ask the employee, in a courteous way, do you happen to be vaccinated? That should be okay under this legislation. And again, the other part of it is the employer could not make a hiring or a termination decision based upon whatever that response is or whatever the employee's vaccination status is. And I know there's pros and cons to this type of legislation, but I mean, from my personal perspective, this does take away some of the authority that I believe an employer should have. We've all got different businesses and different workplaces, and so this particular legislation is going to make it virtually impossible to make hiring or firing decisions based upon vaccination status. I believe, I don't have the legislation right up here in front of me, or this bill right up here in front of me, but if memory serves, I think there are exceptions for certain healthcare related businesses where having vaccinated employees is really critical for the health of patients. So I think that is a kind of a carve out in this particular bill. So maybe HB 146, Carol, do you want to talk about that one?
Yes, I do. This bill is pertaining to the food truck industry. It modifies municipalities and county regulations and business license authority over food trucks. It includes the regulation and business licensing authority over the food truck business that was previously obtained from a business license from another political subdivision, which I'm interpreting is if from one county to another. Mm-hmm. It also modifies the health and safety inspection requirements for food trucks. And then it has in it also, which is totally unrelated to food trucks, is that it modifies the authority of political subdivisions, again being counties, relating to the license of a business, including businesses that rent all-terrain vehicles. So why we've got all-terrain vehicles involved in a food truck licensing bill is hard to understand, but they are modifying that and making it more difficult for food trucks to work with their cities and their counties.
Yeah, and it seems to be kind of part of a trend that's, I think it's just recognized by virtually all folks here in Utah now, of the legislature really restricting the authority of local government bodies from some of their traditional authority in regulating and issuing legislation on all kinds of different topics. So I'll say in jest, maybe adding in the ATV provision was to just help people, if they were on an ATV, to get to a food truck quicker to make their purchase. I don't think that was probably the intent, but for like most of this legislation, we're kind of left to just speculate as to what the real the real kind of background story is on some of these issues. So I think it looks like the next one on the list here might be HB 199 regarding personal property tax. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
So this is an ongoing conversation with the UIBC. We have talked with the legislators and the business owners for a long time on tangible personal property tax. This year, they made an amendment to it that removes the current requirement that taxpayer file a signed letter after the first calendar year in which the taxpayer qualifies for a property tax exemption. So they've taken that off, and once you have qualified, you do not have to sign a document every year and send it in that you don't qualify or you are eligible for this exemption. They've also moved the limit up to $25,000 in tangible personal property for this, which is a good amount and is movement in the right direction. When we started this conversation, I think it was $7,500.
Yes.
And we now have it up to $25,000. So it will certainly help a lot of local small businesses.
Yes, I think of all the different laws that our businesses are subject to. I believe this may be near at the top of the one that is like a thorn in the shoe, right? It's kind of irritating, doesn't produce much revenue really. And I can think of some of our members in UIBC. They're very glad that this one is passed. It truly helps. It removes a big time waster, frankly, for many of our smaller businesses that just like you just talked about, have less than $25,000 in taxable personal property, and it will just save a lot of time not to have to hassle with that every year. So that's a good one.
And coincides with this is the Senate Bill 93, a business tax amendment that would also exempt supplies used in the course of business from personal property tax. This exemption, again, can, we no longer have to count paper and notepads and office supplies, etc., and include them in the personal property tax. So it is involved in the sales and use tax. It exempts the personal property tax consumed and the development of computer software and sales for and use tax. So the UIBC has been in favor of this bill, and we are very happy to see it on the list of bills that passed.
So Carol, but between the first tax bill you just talked about and this one, have you maybe gained about 1 week of your life that you won't be dealing with personal property tax for the foreseeable future?
I have no intention of having to be involved in tangible personal property tax in the near future.
Okay. We'll
don't have to count pencils and paper.
No, I think this is great. This is a big victory for most all of our members. So we're really happy about that one. And I'm kind of scrolling through our list here of what, again, we're still focusing on which ones have passed. I'm trying to find relevant ones here. So SB 59, this was the income tax amendment legislation that passed actually fairly early in the session. This reduces the state income tax rate from 4.9% to 4.85%. And it also, it actually was at the beginning had been related to the personal property tax that you just mentioned. I think that got carved out at the end, but nonetheless, that provision still passed in the legislation you just talked about, Carol. But this reduces for both businesses that are subject to the state income tax and all of us individuals. And it was a kind of a big priority at the beginning. I think, Carol, you and I share the observation that, yeah, I guess it's good to drop it a little bit, but probably not going to have a big impact on very many people on a practical basis. Is that your feeling as
So
well?
I'm going to be on my editorial soapbox and make the comment that the way I see this bill is that it is political speak for the next general election, that look at me, I'm great, I cut your taxes. When in fact it's minute, it's not going to have a major effect on anyone. And the money could have been used so much better on eliminating the food tax, or for mental health, or for education, or a multiple list of other things where the money would have done a lot more good.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you were very accurate in saying it's kind of a resume builder, so to speak, right? For the next election, that they can raise their hand and say they cut taxes. But from our perspective, okay, that's great, but then what's the practical benefit? And could some of that revenue be used for other good things, just like you said, that the state struggles with, quite frankly. So I agree wholeheartedly. So another one I want to highlight here, let's see, for bills that passed, SB 227, Consumer Privacy Act. So think of this bill as really governing what a large business's requirements would be in protecting personal private information and electronic data. And I want to clarify that. So this bill is similar to similar privacy acts in Colorado and California, and there's even a European Union law that is somewhat similar to this. But the good news is that it probably won't affect very many of our UIBC members or other local independent businesses, because there is a threshold that beyond it being applicable to businesses that conduct business in the state of Utah, a business would have to have annual revenue of $25 million or more to be subject to the requirements of the act. And so before our webcast began, I was all ready to kind of sound the alarm that folks really need to be ready to update their website privacy policies and terms of use to become compliant with this act. But those are good things to be aware of and to be protective of anyway, regardless if there's legislation, of course. But this particular law is just not going to affect hardly, probably any of our members for sure, because again, it requires annual revenue for the business to be at least $25 million. So it's really designed to catch the big companies, the big players in whatever industry that they're in. But it's still worth reporting about. The other one I wanted to mention that we haven't had time to investigate very much, but it did pass, SB 248. This pertains to background checks. And so as I understand it, this is going to restrict a business's ability to conduct a background check on, I believe, either employees or potential customers even. And in some business matters, that can be important to really understand who a customer is and what potential risk could be involved. And this bill, I believe, is designed to restrict that ability somewhat. So we'll look into this as we've got a little bit more time to actually read the bill. This one came up very late in the session, and we just didn't have time to investigate very much. But if you sometimes need to do a background check in the course of your business, you'll want to know about this one. Again, it's Senate Bill 248. So Carol, so then kind of switching sides to the bills that were introduced but did not quite make it all the way through the process and did not pass. Do you, which ones cross your mind on that side?
Well, the HB 60 vaccine passport amendment did not pass. So no city or county can require, or business can require that you have a vaccine passport to go into restaurants, into businesses, or anywhere else for that matter. You know, they just said that's no way are we going to let that happen. So that was one. The other one is the Government Records Access Amendment, and I'm tossing that one to you, John.
Yeah,
HB
so that
57.
Yeah, that one was a little concerning because it was designed to really protect government officials from having to reveal information on their quote unquote personal devices in response to a public record request. So the context would be if you had somebody who is a quote unquote government official, doing government business on their personal device, that this legislation, again, which did not pass, would have essentially protected that official from having to reveal information stored on the device. And from my perspective, I just thought that was a bad bill, a bad precedent to send, because if somebody that is either elected or maybe more to the point working in state government is doing business on their personal device, but it is state business, it's part of their job, then that seems to be an issue that should be subject to records review, public records requests, just like it would be if it were on a state-owned computer or other device like that. Another one I'll touch on here that did not pass that we're happy about, the HB 156 was actually designed to give a refund of the sales and use tax to certain businesses involved in purchasing or leasing machinery, equipment, or repair in the oil and gas industries. So this was going to be a kind of a special carve out for oil and gas companies and developers, probably most prevalent here in Utah, in the kind of on the eastern side of the state in the Uinta Basin. But again, this bill did not pass, so they get no special refund for any sales or use tax that they are supposed to pay.
So on this bill, the UIBC had strongly opposed this bill, and I think we can all be very happy that it did not pass, and they have to pay their sales tax just like the rest of us.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I mean, we've got such a wide variety of businesses in our organization, and there just are such a wide variety of all kinds of different small independent businesses. Generally, it seems like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to favor one certain industry, right? And regardless if it's oil or gas, it could have been a different industry. I just personally, I've got a problem with doing that. If there's no real legitimate public purpose that is going to really benefit the public as a whole, then it doesn't seem like the legislature should be in the business of picking favorites.
So the next one we want to talk about is HB 165, which was the food sales tax amendment, which did not pass. this bill would have removed sales tax on food. And this one we take a bit different position on, that we would have liked to have seen this bill pass, but this affects everybody that lives in the state of Utah. So they're not choosing one industry over another. They would be helping everyone that lives in the state of Utah.
Mhm.
And we think that is a bill that should have passed.
Yeah, but it did not. I wouldn't be surprised if that one is picked up again, or similar legislation is picked up again next year, right?
So we're going to hear more about it.
I think so too. This is going to be a big election year, obviously, in 2022. So it'll be interesting if that is picked up again. A couple of others that I'd like to highlight: HB 364. The minimum wage amendment bill, that did not succeed. That one would have required an employer to pay tipped employees at least the minimum wage without accounting for any additional compensation the employee would receive from tips or gratuities. I don't think that one got very far at all, and that's one that would have affected a number of our member businesses in the hospitality and restaurant industry. Another one I'll call out here that did not pass. There's actually one that was designed to provide an employee tax credit to workers in the hospitality industry that was going to allow them a one-time $1,250 state income tax credit if they worked at least 1,560 hours during this year. That one did not pass. Let's see what else I see here. Well, why don't we round it out with, we're all going to keep the same clock time during daylight savings and during the rest of the year, because the daylight savings time modification bill, SB 175, and if memory serves, I believe Senator McKay was the sponsor of this. This one did not pass. And so we will continue, at least for the next year, to recognize both daylight savings time, but then we'll go to standard time in the winter time, like we have for, I'm guessing, the last however many decades, which as long as I've been conscious, that's the way it's been. So anything else, Carol, that strikes your fancy here that you'd like to mention?
The only other one is SB 208, and it's an alcohol beverage recycling requirement, which is an interesting bill. It did not pass, and it would have required all retail alcoholic beverage licenses and event permittees that they had to recycle all glass bottles used at events or in their businesses. Cleaning up our environment, which includes recycling, probably explains why the bill was written in the first place. I would like to find out a little bit more about it. I think that we probably are going to hear more on recycling, whether it's through alcohol beverages or other means, but I thought that was an interesting bill, but I am not surprised it did not pass.
Yeah, I think Senator Kitchen had sponsored that bill, and yeah, I don't know the background on even on how far it got, but it didn't pass. But we certainly support recycling in our organization, and have had past board members who are involved in that industry, which so we'll see if that one comes up again, possibly in the future. Well, to wrap up, Carol, I think the thing that we want to mention is for many years we've done a legislative wrap-up event, believe it or not, in UIBC. And is that something we're working on that now to try and get an event scheduled in April, right?
We are working on having a legislative wrap up in April. We don't know for sure yet if it's going to be a breakfast or a lunch, but we are going to do an event where we can all get together and have a discussion and speaker on what happened at the legislature this year and their perceptions of what was going on at the the Capitol, and the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny moments, etc. So we are working on a wrap up.
Yes, I strongly encourage everybody to get this on your calendar. We'll let you know just as soon as we've got the date and the time and the place all scheduled, which should be probably in the next week or two. But this is kind of our I feel it's one of our feature events that we've traditionally done. It's been a while because of COVID and everything we've gone through the last couple of years, but please look for an update from UIBC in the near future about that, and encourage you to do what you can to attend. We can just about guarantee you're going to be informed for sure, but you're going to have fun and you're going to meet some people, and it's just going to be good to be together. So I'm really looking forward to it.
We are very much looking forward to it.
All right. Okay, well, I think that's all we had for this report. We appreciate you you listening, appreciate you being involved, and just wish everybody I guess a great rest of the early spring, and hope to see you at that wrap up event soon. All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you.